We've got this one from the Post-Millennial. Illegal immigrants can be deported to third-party countries with as little as 6-hour notice, ICE memo says. A new policy memo issued by ICE Director Todd Lyons has stated U.S. immigration officials can now deport illegal immigrants to countries other than their own with minimal advance notice. I say let's go.
Do they warn the other country?
Do they what?
Do they warn the other country?
Well, I mean, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like South Sudan's got the lowest GDP in the world with it's like $390 per year.
Right.
So these illegal immigrants, they're going to boost the GDP of South Sudan.
They need it.
Well, I think the situation here is that many countries don't have agreements in place for us to deport their illegals back to their country. So, for example, like Venezuela won't accept the illegal Venezuelans that we try to send back there. So I think the idea is instead of having to keep them here instead, because we can't send them back to Venezuela, we send them to a third-party country to not let them linger here in our country.
I agree. The question ultimately now is, in the previous segment, we were talking about Karen Bass giving money to illegal immigrants who are targets of federal law enforcement, which is aiding. Like, it's one thing to aid and abet a criminal, someone robbed a bank, but these are not citizens. These are people that Trump is saying is invading us. And the question is, if this money finds its way to Tren de Aragua, to MS-13, to Sinaloa, to whoever else, this is treason. She's aiding and abetting. The question then becomes, does Trump need to go full Abraham Lincoln, or will the Democrat resistance be so weak? Albeit it is nuts, right? They've already shot 2 cops. There's been 3 shootings against law enforcement, but still, they've not organized any meaningful way. So does Trump need to escalate the law enforcement beyond what he's doing now? My argument would be a little bit.
Yeah.
Not like he needs to declare a war and send in the Marines to take over California, but federalizing the National Guard. Yeah. And I do think he needs to start arresting Democrat politicians who are aiding and abetting criminal gangs.
We don't need a march to the sea, but he can go in and do some surgical stuff, and just take care of the illegal.
Well, I think Karen Bass should be arrested at the bare minimum. Yeah. If they don't want to say it's treason because it's like kind of on the line. If Tren de Aragua got this cash, then she is doing that. She's facilitating that. But if it's just aiding the illegal immigrants, I'd say sedition. I do believe right now the DOJ shouldn't waste any time. They should absolutely charge. However, I wonder if they're going to wait till after the midterms. So Trump is done 2029, January 20th. This is it for him. He's going to walk out, and that's the end game. That's end game for him. He's going to, like his first term, this is what all politicians try to do, maximize the powers they have right now so that he gets the full 4 years. So Trump says, play it light for now, do some of these raids. Let's try and win the midterms. After the midterms are over, full bore.
Because if the Democrats get the House again, it's going to be endless impeachments again, I think is what the president suspects, just like it was last time when he lost the House.
So he can take the actions now and then maybe lose the midterms, or he can take little actions now, try and win the midterms, and then go ham.
I think you got to do it now.
I agree.
Like, you got to save lives. You got to help turn this country around. You can't wait.
I think the assumption that you can win the midterms by waiting is wrong.
And I think the advantage that the president has is, I think, even in sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, blue areas, I think your average law enforcement officer is on board. Yeah. Right? They're tired of having to fight with their own criminal element, let alone an illegal criminal element. So I'm sure there are some lefty cops, there's leftists everywhere. But I would think that most of your LAPD will be thrilled to know that the president wants to help get rid of their criminal element. And when Karen Bass is like, the LA police are going to blah, 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 like, we're not. Yep. We're actually not.
So I wanted to prompt you guys on something that I hear a lot of Democrat politicians talking about. And so at a lot of these workplace raids, at a lot of these outside of immigration courts where ICE agents are detaining illegal aliens, they're all masked up. Some have, different masks that they're wearing, clearly there to protect their identities. Tom Homan cited something like a 700% increase in violence towards these agents as to why they're wearing their masks. I believe that, obviously, and that there's been a lot of threats towards their families, and there's been literally shootings at these ICE agents, even when they are wearing their masks. This led to people like Rep. Velasquez and Representative Dan Goldman and others introducing different legislation to kind of ban masks on ICE agents. I totally understand why they find it necessary to wear masks, but how do you guys feel about them wearing masks? Because I think part of the narrative here is struggling because it looks sketchy when people with sometimes their badges hidden, sometimes their face is completely covered. I've covered
no masks.
Yeah.
No masks.
Yeah. So what do you make of the administration's defense of ICE agents wearing masks, saying, it's putting them in danger, and that because there are different activists who are doxing them, and it is happening. I've seen it.
The arguments, I imagine, functionally, imagine you're trying to recruit as many ICE as possible. They've got this big budget increase. And you say, but you can't wear a mask, so they're going to see your face, they're going to find out who you are, they're going to post you on the internet, and they're going to find your family. They're like, I quit.
Yeah, who's doing that?
Mm-hmm. So the reason I say no masks, though, is because if you can't rally and get the people you need, then you don't deserve to win. It is simple as bringing those people in and giving them a rallying cry and saying, we will not wear masks. We will not hide who we are. We will not hide what we do. We recognize they will try to kill us. They will threaten us. They will threaten everything we love. But the founding fathers sacrificed blood, treasure, and family to create this nation. And by God, we will do the same to save it. And if you've got people who are like, I'm too scared, then you should not be here. But I guarantee someone with the right charisma who's leading these guys is going to say, you don't need the masks. And they're going to say, why not just have them? Let them come. Show the world who these people are when they make these moves, and we will use the might of the U.S. government against the terrorists. And the left is going to do the terrorists. I don't care. They're shooting cops. We voted for this. Trump won. This is not fascism. This is what the American voter asked Trump to do.
Do you remember in the week leading up to the passage of the big beautiful bill, Democrats were taken to the floor with all the sob stories. I want to tell about Juanita Gomez, who's 9 years old and was born without a head, and she's going to lose her insurance because there were all the sob stories. I haven't heard one sob story about these 14-year-olds who are working on a pot farm. Right? No one has come out and been like, let me tell you the story of, and this is who the Democrats are defending. Right? They're defending the child slave labor. They're defending it.
Why won't the
where is anyone coming out saying like what is the life of a 15-year-old girl who works on a pot farm, and what is she doing tonight when she's done working? Where is she sleeping? How is she getting raped?
But why is the media saying slaves? Why aren't the headlines saying slaves?
No advocates. These little girls have no advocates. The cartels have great advocates, but these little girls have no one fighting for them.
I will break it down like this. Many of the migrant workers on these farms are not there by choice. They're adults. It's hard to prove. You could maybe say they've indentured themselves to the cartels by saying, I agree to enter into a contract by which I'll work X amount of time for being smuggled into the United States. I've gone to I'll just keep it kind of private because the people who are at this restaurant might know, but it was a non-American style of food, and their employees appeared to be indentured servants. And they got very mad when I pointed something like this out. That's illegal. You're allowed to do that. Like if you live in, say, like China, and you're like, I want passage to the United States, so say, okay, we're gonna have you work a debt off for us. We don't do that in the United States. The issue is that children cannot enter into these contracts. Children cannot agree to be smuggled. That's trafficking. Children who are on a farm doing labor illegally in this country, kids aren't allowed to work on farms like this to the degree that they're having these people. That would then be upgraded from indentured servitude to slavery because they don't have a choice. And so here we are. The question is, you know what I think it is? I think it's because the American liberal thinks slavery is a black man in a field being beaten.
Yes.
They don't realize that slavery affected every level of American society, from grocery stores to government to building houses. In the mind of the liberal, when you talk about slavery, they imagine it's a guy in a field. But there were people who worked a blacksmith, and he had slaves, and the slave would make horseshoes. Nobody was hitting him, but that was not his choice. He did not want to be there, and they were enslaved. I don't know why. You can make all the assumptions. I'll ask you guys in the comments, why won't the media admit these are child slaves?
The left only cares about children when they're dead from mass shootings, so they can use them as political cudgels.
To be fair, the past few they didn't want to talk about at all because of the identity of the shooters.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big conflict for them. Depending on the shooter and who the victims are, they have a tough time deciding on who the victim is.
Well, to be fair, Chicago has a mass shooting every weekend they never talk about.
That's so weird.
At least according to the Googles, 388,000 slaves were taken to North America from Africa. Joe Biden lost how many kids?
300,000-ish.
Right. So Joe Biden was...
Wait. People taken from the U.S. to Africa?
Over 12 million were trafficked out of Africa, but 388,000 were brought directly to North America.
Oh, okay.
Again, according to the Googleses. But so Joe Biden trafficked more than 300,000 children in 4 years. And this was over 200 years. Joe Biden was the largest slave trafficker and sex trafficker in the history of the world.
You know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I think it is absolutely fair to say that children who are smuggled here did not make the choice and now having to work off a debt are being forced to do so. I would call that trafficking and slavery. But if we want to play the game the Democrats play about, but they're asylum seekers. Okay, you're right, liberals. These people in their home countries were threatened by gangs and had no choice but to leave. Now, many of them smuggled here are forced to work on farms to pay off those debts. So they were forced to do it, so they're all slaves?
Right.
If you want to argue these people weren't safe at home and had no choice but to flee, and now their only option was die or work on a farm, I'd call that slavery.
Yeah. Totally.
In which case, these people, Trump is liberating slaves.
So he is Lincoln-ish.
We're getting there.
To be fair, that was my legal arguments. Yeah. I think the child slavery thing is 100% correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not really surprised no one in media is admitting that Trump found child slaves.
No, it's just easier to say, strawberry fields.
Right.
What Congressman said that over the weekend. They're picking up families working on strawberry fields, like when the Poole family goes strawberry picking in spring, right? Like mom and dad and kids and like.
And then Trump's masked guys with skulls are just beating children.
It's a level of evil that is hard to comprehend, and yet we have to pretend to have rational conversations.
It's demonic.
It is. Oh, it's purely demonic. Purely demonic. And Gavin Newsom with his slick back hair defending the cartels trafficking girls on pot farms, who, by the way, donated one of the biggest pot farms that was raided was a donor to his campaign, right?
Newsom?
To
Trump should shut the pot farms down.
So
I'm so sick.
It's just evil.
Of the weakness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who did I have on? We were on the culture war, and I said this is why I'll never be in government. And I can't remember. We had Dr. Chloe, Dr. Drew, and Naomi Best, and someone asked like why, and I was like, no one would dare let me anywhere near that seat of power.
No.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me when I say, what was that child slave labor on your pot farm? The federal government is federalizing, seizing it, and shutting it down. Done. Not to mention it's illegal federally anyway. Now, I'm not an anti-weed guy. I am not somebody who thinks it should be illegal. I'm more of a regulate, more in the libertarian spectrum when it comes to a lot of drugs. I don't want anybody doing them. I just don't know if having a law that's not being enforced does anything. But that being said, at the bare minimum, it's an illegal drug. Okay, it's a federal government says it's illegal, and they found child slaves. How hard would it be to send one guy with a clipboard and be like, shut your farm down?
Yeah. It's okay to be against a business that has child slaves.
Yes, I don't care what the business is.
We give you permission, Democrats. You are allowed to be opposed to child slavery. But this is why they call Trump derangement syndrome, right? Because if Trump did it, it has to be wrong.
Yeah,
so you start adopting positions that just absolutely make no sense. It's when you have devout pro-Israel Jews Democrats coming out and being like, well, I oppose the Iran strike. It's like, whoa. We can talk about that. But you have 40 years on the record saying you would appreciate this. It's like, but Trump did it, so therefore it's wrong.
Right.
Trump derangement syndrome is so sick that Democrats in California will defend slave labor on a pot farm.
Well, now, when I talk about the escalation and threats of violence, there's a lot of people who have made posts. One guy got, I think, like 10 million views saying, if masked men are kidnapping your family, you have a right to defend yourself. And it's like, in the vaguest of contexts, if you're at home and a guy in a balaclava kicks your door in and grabs your daughter, yes, everyone recognizes that. But when there's duly sworn in law enforcement with an announced raid showing up with police vehicles, and you're like, but they're wearing masks. You have no right to shoot those cops when you know they're engaged in lawful law enforcement activity. But now I'm seeing more doofy liberal types saying the exact same thing. This is the sentiment on the rise on the left, which I believe we will see more and more people ambushing and shooting at ICE.
Yeah.
We saw two groups, July 4th and July 7th. And then a few days later, some guy at one of these riots pulled out what appeared to be a pistol and appeared to be shooting at federal law enforcement.
Yeah, it's going to continue.
I feel like there's been a large increase in violence that's kind of been normalized and just been swept under the table, like that we forget about it after one news cycle happens. So obviously there was the Luigi Mangione stuff. Recently, there was also in Minneapolis, a couple of lawmakers that were shot. Where obviously
that was the Vance Butler guy.
We're obviously coming on the anniversary
in a church
of the Trump shooting.
The Idaho guy going after the first responders.
And then multiple assaults or shootings against ICE officers.
Israel embassy thing.
And that
it's
just
been nonstop.
The next day, it just seems like, oh yeah, but I don't know if that's just in my head if we're noticing that more, but it seems as though we spend less time concerned on these acts of violence when they do happen, and I think it is very concerning because I think we're going to see this trend continue.
Well, and then you hear nonsense politicians like Tim Walz say, like, Democrats have to get nastier. It's like, how much nastier do you need to get, right? I mean,
they have to actually take the skin off their face and reveal the lizard.
I mean, it's starting with the Bernie Sanders supporter who shot up the congressional baseball game.
Yeah,
right? Like,
true.
there really isn't a prominent act of political violence that has come from the right. January 6th. I know that's why they always have to go back to January 6th.
Yeah, but not only will they murder you, but everybody on their partisan side will justify it. I think that's one of the big issues too. I feel like back in the day we used to come to a consensus where vigilante justice was bad, but now like, oh, if it supports my political ends, I do support it. And I guess the reason why that's so concerning is because many people have many political beliefs that they hold with deep conviction, but if we let people go down about vigilante justice, we'll end up in a really crazy place. The thing I'm implying, by the way, is there are people right now who are pro-life who believe that there is a Holocaust going on within abortion clinics. What does that make you justify in your beliefs and makes you believe you should be able to do in vigilante justice is endless if you're justifying.
Hopefully you don't want to take someone else's life if you're pro-life.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.